You hear the word democracy thrown around all the time. Seems pretty simple, doesn't it? Rule by the people. But what does that really mean when the rubber hits the road? Well, today, we're going to unpack that one little word and explore all its different, fascinating, and complex faces. So let me ask you, when I say the word democracy, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Maybe you're picturing a voting booth, or people protesting in the streets, or maybe one of those huge, fancy parliament buildings. And you know what? All of those are right. It's a word that means so many things, so let's dig in. All right, to really get it, we've got to go way back to its roots in ancient Greece. The word itself comes from two Greek words, demos, which means the people, and kratos, which means rule. So at its absolute core, it's a simple, really powerful idea. The people rule. But that's pretty much where the simplicity ends, because the real question, the one that has shaped countries for thousands of years, isn't if the people rule, but how they do it. And as you're about to see, the answers to that question are all over the map. This brings us to the first huge fork in the road, and it all boils down to one simple question. Who's making the actual day-to-day decisions? Is it every single citizen, or is it someone they picked to do it for them? So let's go down one path first. Direct democracy. Imagine this. Instead of electing a politician, you get to vote on every major decision. A new tax proposal? You vote on it. A big environmental law? You vote. The choice to go to war? You and every other citizen get a direct say. I mean, this is democracy in its most raw, pure form. It works through things like citizen assemblies, where people literally get together to debate, or through referendums, where a new law is put on the ballot for everyone to decide. But as you can imagine, it requires a ton of participation from everybody. The classic example everyone always points to is ancient Athens. Now, let's be clear, it was far from perfect. Women, slaves, and foreigners couldn't participate at all. But for the men who were considered citizens, it was a system where they would physically get together, debate the issues, and vote directly on the laws for their city. Okay, now let's contrast that with the model that's way more common today, representative democracy. The people are still in charge, but they rule indirectly. What they do is delegate their power by electing officials to represent them and make those big decisions for them. This whole system is built around the idea of regular elections. We vote for people, politicians, whose full-time job it is to dig into the issues and govern on our behalf. And really, it's a practical solution for a huge country with millions of people. I mean, you can't exactly get 300 million people into one room to debate a healthcare bill, right? And, yep, this is the system you'll find in most countries all around the world. It's a practical answer to a really big challenge. But, and this is a huge but, even inside this one model, there are some massive differences in how it's all set up. So, once a country decides, okay, we're going to elect representatives, the very next question is, all right, how do we organize the government? And this is where two main blueprints tend to pop up. On one side, you've got the presidential system. Here, the executive branch, led by the president, and the legislative branch are two separate, distinct things. On the other side, you've got the parliamentary system. In this one, the executive branch, the prime minister and their team, actually comes from the legislature. They're all mixed together. And this really gets to the core difference. In a presidential system, the leader is elected by the people, so they're accountable directly to the voters. But in a parliamentary system, the prime minister is chosen by the parliament, so they're accountable to their fellow elected officials. It's a totally different flow of power. And, just to make things more complicated, some countries decided to mix and match. You look at a place like France, and they have a hybrid system with both an elected president who has real power and a prime minister who is accountable to their parliament. Pretty interesting stuff. But wait, there's more. The layers of complexity don't stop there. We also got to look at how power is spread out across a country and even how something ancient like a monarchy can fit into a modern democracy. So you've got this split, federal versus unitary. In a federal system, like you see in the US or Germany, power is officially split between the big national government and smaller regional ones, like states. This is great for big, diverse countries. Then you have unitary systems, like in Japan or France, where the central government in the capital holds most of the authority. And what about kings and queens? Well, a constitutional monarchy, like in the United Kingdom or Spain, is a full-on democracy. The elected government holds all the political power. The monarch, they're a ceremonial head of state, a living symbol of the nation, but their power is limited by the Constitution. Okay, so We've thrown around a lot of labels and definitions: presidential, federal, unitary, but the big question is, why does any of this matter? Why should you care if your country has a president or a prime minister? It all boils down to some really important trade-offs. Presidential systems with their fixed terms are usually more stable, but the huge downside is gridlock. When the president and the legislature can't agree, nothing gets done. Parliamentary systems can be way more efficient at passing laws, but they can also be less stable. A government can lose support and collapse, forcing a whole new election. So in the end, the type of democracy a country chooses actually shapes everything. It decides who gets to have power, it defines how laws get made, it influences how stable the government is, and it even changes the basic relationship between you and the state. It's the blueprint for the entire country. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. This isn't just theory for a textbook. The specific model a country uses directly impacts the daily lives and the amount of political power regular people have. By understanding all these different faces of democracy, we can make more sense of what's happening in the news around the world. And, just as importantly, we can look at our own system and think more critically about its strengths and its weaknesses. And that leaves us with one last big thought. Democracy has never been a static, finished product. It's always changing. So as we face all these new challenges, from AI to globalization, you have to wonder, what will the next face of democracy look like? That's a question for all of us to think about. Thanks for joining me.